Hello everyone, and welcome to What If Deku Had a Clone Quirk. In this what if's gonna be a little bit more laid back than my usual ones. It's not gonna be as scripted. I'm just gonna kind of freeboard a little bit, if I'm being completely honest with you. That being said, if you like this, please subscribe and like the video, and check out my other stuff if you can. I've just uploaded a What If Deku Had a Sharingan, which is going pretty good so far. Um, yeah, let's just get straight into it. Childhood. I'm gonna say Deku was born to Inko and Hisashi Midoriya. In this timeline, he does have a quirk, a weak doubling quirk that allows himself to make one single clone, but transfer his perspective, quote unquote, or like his, what do I say, like intelligence, I guess. Consciousness between his double, like he can transfer his consciousness between himself and the double. As a kid, he would awaken his quirk at the age of 4. He would randomly one day, he would be getting picked on by Bakugo and his goons as a small flash of light would emit from his body. Everyone's eye, everyone would wince their eyes, and the light as the light would go on, and wait, everyone would wince their eyes. The light would go on, and out of the light, a beat up Deku on the floor and a second Deku standing in front of him. The second Deku, the clone, I'm gonna say it was slightly shorter and like a little bit kind of malformed, you know. As you know, first time using this quirk, it's not gonna be a perfect copy. It's just gonna be like, I don't know, it's not the best. He has to train it a little bit before it's perfect. They would all scream, "Whoa, there's two of you!" And Deku would rub his head in confusion, a little bit lightheaded and very lost, as his head's split between two personalities right now, you know. Um, the second Deku would look around, look down at his feet, look up again, and then look around again, before saying, "Huh?" Before completely disappearing before all of their eyes. The kids would see this and start absolutely screaming, running towards the teachers and telling them that Deku awakened his quirk. Inko would come to pick up Deku and they would go to the quirk doctor together. The doctor would confirm that Deku does in fact have a quirk, a cloning quirk it seems. Quite a weird one at that too. His quirk's name is Replicator. He can create a replica of himself, giving his durability. It also seems his consciousness is split between the clones. Little Izuku can choose which clone body to pilot, quote unquote. He has a secondary effect of a light when a clone is created too, but that's not too important for now. Deku's mum looks down at the doctor. Deku's mum looks at the doctor, and then looks down at her son again, whose face would be beaming with the widest smile she'd ever seen. Well, at least you can be a hero, Izuku, Inko would say, not telling Deku her real thoughts of how this is going to cost her to look after two boys. The doctor would look at Inko, reading her like a book, and assuring her that her worries are not to be worried about. Uh, Saying that his quirk can only last a short duration, though as he ages, I'm sure he will learn to control it. They would go home, and he would learn to control over. They would go home after this, and Deku would immediately start summoning his clone, talking to it, trying to get it to stay around for as long as he can, learning to switch his consciousness from one clone to another. It does drain him a lot, though. Like, you know, he does have to physically, like, you know, split. Like, I don't know. He would grow up in a training hard and befriending Bakugo, who isn't a douche in this timeline because he does actually have a quirk. So those two would become friends in this timeline. Class would continue as normal, and Deku would get a little bit of a bigger head because, you know, hanging next to Bakugo and getting rid of the whole fanboy personality. You know. Cut forward 10 years to when it's Deku. Wait, we're gonna go to Sludgeville now. Cut forward 10 years when Deku was 14. In this timeline, him and Bakugo get along decently, and sometime even train together. Deku, I'm gonna say, has made some progress with Quirk over the next 10 years. He found out he can make up to 2 extra clones for a total of 3 bodies. So 2 clones and himself at once. Along with this, he found his clones can learn info on his behalf, and then when they disappear, they can return the info to his original consciousness, making it so he doesn't have to eat or drink either. Like, like shadow clones, like shadow clone jutsu, like Naruto, yeah. Deku and Bakugo would train on Dagobah Beach in their spare time. They would spare it with one another and they would go to Dagobah Beach because it's a good little spot. They would see all the trash and they would create like a little, like a little circle area that they can spar in, like a little ring. They also hit gym together after figuring out that they can't really rely on their quirks so much as they're still humans, especially Deku, because his quirk isn't really physical. It's just a clone. It's just 3 people. If anything, it's like a jumping quirk. The training and the gym, also hanging out with Bakugo, would rub off on Deku and leads to his personality being much more confident in this timeline. The day of the sludge villain attack comes around and the teacher throws the papers up in the air like in canon. Bakugo does his little speech, Deku looking at him. Bakugo go, oi, oi, oi! Deku and Bakugo would split after school, dapping each other up, as I say, rest day from gym, and Deku takes a shortcut home. He walks through a tunnel and another version of himself with a hoodie next to him. He doesn't want to get in trouble for public quirk use, so he hides himself. So he always has a double with him. I'm gonna go on to where his clones are. He has 1 clone at home, like hanging out with Inko. He has 1 clone at school with him, learning with him, like in another class. And he has 1 clone. Oh, and it's just him. So then after school, him and his clone are walking home, and his clone has, his clone has a hoodie and like a mask on to hide his face, Anyway, the clone would hear a metal clank and feel the hair on his neck stand up. "Give me your body, kid!" The sludge villain would scream as he shoots a 10-year-old Deku. Without even thinking, the clone would push Deku out of the way and tank the shot himself. He would spit out blood as he's strangled by the sludge villain. Deku would watch in horror as himself would watch in horror, seeing almost a mirror image of himself getting strangled to death in front of him. He tries to claw himself out, unable to move, horrified. In the corner of his eye, he sees a familiar figure jumping from the floor, winding up his fist and sending a smash, bellowing towards the sludge villain. Just in time, Deku closes his eyes and releases his clone, puffing into a cloud of smoke inside the villain as a gust of wind hits the sludgy mass and paints him onto the walls. Deku would look up at All Might and his face would light up seeing it's All Might. "Hello, young man. Are you okay? Did the sludge villain get to you? I swear I saw you in the villain just a second ago." Deku looks around from his right to his left, looking for his notebook, geeking out, asking for an autograph. As All Might flips through the pages, looking for a clear one to sign, Deku explains his quirk to him. My quirk's name is Replicator. I can pretty much make clones. Kinda lame, but it works." All Might laughs and assures him his quirk is fine, complimenting his notebook's contents before leaping off, dropping the sludge villain mid-jump. So Deku doesn't jump onto All Might in this timeline as, he got his, he's confident in this one. He isn't worried about it. They do have a little chat though. Deku gets to know All Might. All Might gets to know Deku a little bit, make their bases and shit, The second sludge villain incident. This shit, bitch. Bakugo will walk out the arcade and look at the weird sludge on the floor before getting taken hostage, immediately setting off a huge explosion and trying to get out the grasp of the villain. Deku would be walking home and his villain would have been sent to the shop by Inko to get some groceries. Relaying the info to the real Deku, who was chilling in his room, so the real Deku, who just met All Might, made it home, and the clone Deku was sent out by Inko to go get groceries for them. Deku would immediately switch to the other Deku's POV, seeing a large group of people staring in disbelief at a villain attack in broad daylight. Deku would release his clone and at home and summon it to himself, getting on his shoulders to get a better view. He would pull out his phone to try and get a video for Bakugo and to rewatch later for note purposes, zooming in to see a familiar face in a familiar villain's body. Deku's eyes would widen as anger would build up. Immediately, Deku would jump off his clone's shoulders, jumping over 3 sets of people and parkour rolling onto the floor in front of them, running at the burning buildings and the villain. He would release both of his clones and summon them next to him. He would put them like in a V in front of him, so he's behind them, and you got one to the left, one to the right. He would put his hands out in front of him. The clones would grab one of his hands each and would yank Deku, throwing him at the sludge villain at top speed. Utilizing the second part of his quirk, he would summon the clones again, a large flash of light blinding the villain for long enough for all of his clones to claw Bakugo out. Bakugo was barely conscious. All 3 Dekus grab Bakugo and run with a body part on each hand. They run into the crowds as the villain's tendril chases them. In his strain, Deku forces a 4th clone to come out to redirect the tendril to another direction, away from the clones and away from Bakugo. The clones look back at the sludge villain so the 4th clone looks back at the sludge villain and sticks a tongue out before disappearing. Suddenly, all clones disappear and Deku drops unconscious to the floor. The strain being too much. Both Deku and Bakugo lay there as the sludge villain was about to attack them. All Might buffs up and steps between the two. You've done enough. You've done a mighty fine job, young man. I'm so very proud of you. You inspire me to go beyond. He then clocks his fist back and punches the sludge villain. It straight up disappears. Deku and Bakugo are rushed off to the hospital and they wake up the next day with both their families sitting beside them. The 10-month time skip would happen. After they wake up in the hospital, the doctors would explain to them that the sludge villain incident caused Deku to get a concussion and broke his arm after he fell down. Like, he didn't get hurt or anything. He, like, legitimately just fell down on it weird. Like, Bakugo fell on top of it or something when he passed out. He also explains there's quite a famous... They're both actually quite famous. Hero... they've got some names. Hero Pothead, who's Bakugo, and Hero Doppel, which is Deku. Deku smiles at the name he's given and looks over to Bakugo, who's seething with anger at the name he was given. The doctor would explain to them that they need to rest for the couple of days, and at most, they're all good to go again. The doctor explains that they need to go rest for a couple of days at most, and then they're all good to go again. Over the next few days, Deku and Bakugo would get to talking about the UA entrance exam as they have nothing better to do. You know, still sitting in hospital and stuff. They would talk about how Deku can now make 4 clones and they're going on to train with that. Bakugo getting excited as 3 of us are already getting kind of tough. Deku and Bakugo are almost released from the hospital when a short skinny man and a policeman come in to get Deku. They pull him away from Bakugo into a separate room. Deku is sat down and All Might starts talking after buffing up again. All Might explains one for all to Deku and offers his quirk to him. Deku thinks for a second before speaking. I'll take it, but I kinda gotta tell the douche in the other room. He's probably secretly listening in on this already. Bakugo quickly sits back down. All Might asks why, and Deku explains that it would be weird if he suddenly got a power boost and that he's been best friends with Bakugo his whole life. All Might agrees and they all talk. Bakugo somehow wraps his head around the thing and says, "Wait, you chose this nerd?" All Might nods, and All Might nods and says, "The heroics your friend showed while saving you the other day solidified that for me." Bakugo scoffs and says, "Well, at least now I can stop pulling my punches." They then talk about training for the next 10 months, and All Might recommends they go to Dagobah Beach. Deku and Bakugo look at each other and smirk, saying they already trained there and that it's perfect. Yeah, we made a ring out of trash so we could use our quirks there without anyone seeing. All Might would sigh and shake his head. Well, we'll be clearing it instead. It'll be good for you to develop, I think. Plus, one for all isn't a quirk you can take lightly, he explains. Deku nods and they go off to train for the next 10 months. At the end of the 10 months, a lot of stuff changes, especially about his quirk. You can now make up to 5 clones, so 6 people total. So his main body and 5 extra clones that you can change into, and he can have them, and they can all last for up to 1 hour. Like, okay, if he has 5 clones plus himself out, they can all last for an hour. If he has like 3 clones, they can all last for 2 hours each. If he has 1 clone, it can last for 6 hours. And due to his clones not transferring damage to the original, he can use his clones to get a hold of One For All's percentage system, and bouncing ideas off Bakugo gets him to get into full cowling. So he can use 5 clones at once and can use up to 10% full cowling and 20% regular punches and stuff. He also leaves a clone to study for him as he does workouts and stuff on the beach. He also has clones in full cowling for long periods of time to train for duration rather than power. So he's going to be OP as shit. Like, let's be real.
And that is where I'm going to end it off. Hopefully, you liked that part. I will be releasing part 2 and 3 soon, and then a full movie eventually. This is actually really fun to make. I really love clone quirks to begin with, or clone powers. I think they're sick as. If you like this video, please subscribe. If you would like to check out the rest of my content, please do. That's about it. Thank you.